high in the world's most unforgiving mountain ranges, where storms roar like living beasts and darkness brings temperatures that plunge below 50 C. Survival becomes something more than endurance. It becomes an art. Imagine standing on a lonely ridge with no fire to warm your hands, no wool clothing wrapped around your body, and no shelter except the land itself. Your breath freezes before it even leaves your lips, and the cold presses against your bones with a cruelty that feels almost intelligent. Most people today wouldn't last a single hour, yet for thousands of years. Isolated mountain tribes lived through these nights not just once, but every winter, year after year. How did they do it? How did humans survive in a world where firewood doesn't exist, wool doesn't grow, and the cold is a predator that never sleeps? To understand their story, we must step back into a time when mountains were more than landscapes. They were guardians, enemies, teachers, and prisons. The people who lived there didn't choose the cold, they inherited it. Their intro is written in the snow, carved into stone cliffs and whispered through frozen winds. Without access to forests, their nights were too cold to sustain flames. Without sheep or goats, wool was impossible. Without metal tools or thick shelters, the cold pressed into their huts like an unwelcome guest. Yet these tribes developed methods so ingenious, so precise, and so deeply rooted in natural science that modern survival experts still marvel at them today. Their strategies were built not on technology, but on biology, on physics, on observation, and on an unshakable understanding of their extreme environment. And in their story, we find one of humanity's greatest triumphs, the ability to turn a deadly landscape into a home. The main body of this story begins with one truth. The tribes who survived cold beyond imagination treated warmth not as something created, but as something captured and preserved. The key to staying alive in a world without fire was simple: stop heat from escaping. Every mountain tribe across Central Asia, the Himalayas, the Andes, and Siberia developed their own version of this principle. Their first and most fundamental technique was insulation, not from textiles or fabrics, but from the earth itself. Many tribes built semi-underground homes called pit dwellings, sinking their living spaces deep into the soil, where temperatures remained far more stable than the violent winds above. The earth acted like a natural blanket, trapping geothermal warmth and blocking freezing gusts. Even without fire, the temperature inside these dwellings could remain survivable, because the ground rarely reaches the extreme lows of the surface air. It was a natural refrigerator flipped into a natural heater. Inside these homes, the architecture was intelligent. Walls were layered with dried grasses, moss, straw, reeds, or animal hides harvested from creatures other than sheep, often yaks, ibex, or mountain goats whose fur wasn't wool but still contained dense fibers that trapped warmth. In some regions, tribes even used compacted snow as insulation, discovering that snow itself, when tightly packed, traps air so effectively that it forms a protective barrier against wind and cold. This was the same principle that later inspired igloos in the Arctic and modern insulated homes. Ancient people didn't need scientific language. They understood through experience. But insulation alone wasn't enough. To survive 50 C nights, tribes learned to use the most powerful heater on Earth: the human body. Body heat, when shared, becomes a force that can keep entire families alive. Mountain tribes slept in tight clusters, pressing bodies together under layers of skins and grass mats to create a shared microclimate. A single person sleeping alone might die. 10 people sleeping as one could survive the night. This method, which modern survival instructors often call thermal grouping, was perfected thousands of years earlier by people who observed animals like musk oxen, who huddle in circles to shield each other from freezing winds. They also engineered bedding that maximized heat retention, instead of sleeping on the ground, where the earth would draw heat away. Tribes built thick, raised platforms, stuffed with leaves, feathers, or dried plants that created natural air pockets. Even 2 inches of insulation beneath the body could reduce heat loss dramatically. Over time, families perfected the layering: hides on top to trap heat, dried materials beneath to block conduction, and bodies pressed together in the center to conserve warmth. These systems were so effective that some mountain tribes documented cases of surviving nights that even fire couldn't conquer. Then came clothing, an entire science of its own. Without wool, tribes used what the mountains gave them. Yak fur, for instance, contains long, hollow fibers that trap heat exceptionally well. Mountain goat fur, duch of course, forms a dense outer layer that blocks wind while allowing sweat to escape. Some tribes even created multi-layered garments with plant fibers sandwiched between two layers of hide, creating pockets of still air that worked like modern winter jackets. A single layer fur coat was warm but heavy. A 3-layer garment with trapped air was light and significantly more effective. This principle is the foundation of modern cold weather clothing, and yet mountain tribes discovered it centuries before industrial science existed. Another fascinating strategy was moisture control. In extreme cold, moisture is more deadly than wind. Wet clothing loses heat up to 25 times faster than dry clothing. Mountain tribes learned to keep their garments bone dry at all costs. They wore inner clothing made of tightly woven plant fibers that wicked sweat away from the body. Outer layers were coated with natural oils or animal fats that made them water resistant. Tribes knew that breathing into blankets could cause dangerous ice buildup, so they slept with their faces exposed, keeping their breath away from insulating materials. These details might seem small, but they were the difference between life and death. Nutrition also played a powerful role. When you have no fire, eating hot food is impossible, but eating the right food can save your life. Mountain tribes consumed high-fat diets before sleep, eating dried meat, fermented milk, nuts, or fat-rich plants that released energy slowly through the night. Fat metabolizes as heat, fueling the body like a furnace. Some tribes even practiced a ritual of night stuffing, eating large meals before dusk to increase internal warmth. This wasn't superstition, it was biology. Your body burns calories to stay warm. The more stable fuel you give it, the longer the warmth lasts. We often think of fire as the ultimate tool for survival, but in the highest mountains, there is no firewood. Not a single tree grows at those altitudes. Even if you find plants, they are too damp or too small to burn. Instead, tribes used heat sources we rarely think about: stones. During the day, even freezing sunlight warms rocks slightly. Tribes collected these stones and brought them inside, where they released their stored heat slowly through the night. This wasn't enough to heat a room, but it was enough to raise the temperature around their bedding by a few degrees, which could be the difference between frostbite and safety. Airflow management was another critical innovation. You might think sealing a hut completely would keep heat inside, but without ventilation, condensation would freeze on the interior walls and create deadly humidity. Mountain tribes built tiny vents near the roofline, allowing moist air to escape and dry air to circulate. These vents were angled to block wind while ensuring that humidity did not destroy insulation. This is the same principle used in modern alpine tents. Some tribes even used sophisticated breathing techniques. In Tibet, for example, monks developed a practice called tamo, a form of meditative breathing that increases body temperature by stimulating blood flow and altering metabolic rate. While not every tribe used spiritual training, many had controlled breathing rituals that helped maintain calmness and reduce heat loss. Panic and rapid breathing lower body temperature dramatically. Slow breathing conserves heat. This ancient knowledge is now studied by scientists exploring how the human body can adjust to extreme cold. Another remarkable adaptation was the use of community rotation. In extremely cold weather, certain members of the tribe took turns acting as wind shields, sitting or lying at the outer edge of the group during sleep, while others stayed in the center. They rotated positions so that no one experienced prolonged exposure. This created a living wall of protection, much like penguins rotate roles in Antarctic huddles. Still others mastered the environment itself. They built their homes facing specific directions. Never west, where winds were strongest. Often south, where the sun offered a few degrees of warmth. Entrances were kept low, roofs curved, and walls angled to deflect wind rather than resist it. These were aerodynamic shelters, designed centuries before modern engineers studied wind flow. What makes all of this so extraordinary is the unity of intelligence, adaptation, and humility. Mountain tribes did not survive by conquering the environment. They survived by learning it. They watched snow patterns, studied animal behavior, understood the mountain winds, and used every natural resource with precision. Their knowledge was not written in books, but carried in memory, passed from elders to children as sacred wisdom. In many ways, their mastery of microclimates, insulation, and human physiology rivaled modern survival science. It is a testament to the power of human innovation. They taught us that survival is not about strength, but understanding. Not about resistance, but harmony. These tribes thrived not because they had fire or wool, but because they possessed something far stronger. Knowledge of the land, respect for nature, and an unbreakable bond with each other. Their ingenuity still shapes modern survival training and cold weather science. And their legacy reminds us that even in the harshest places on Earth, human beings are capable of incredible adaptation. The cold may be merciless, but the human spirit is far stronger. If this changed how you see ancient engineering, hit that like button. And also subscribe this channel for more rediscovered genius. And tell me in the comments, what other mysteries should we uncover next?